Good morning, everybody. Dorothy here from CCMA. You're all very welcome once again to our CCMA community chat. Cormac and I were just talking to there, and we just said this is number 4. So far so good. Touch wood, technology hasn't failed us since the first one, Cormac. So we're doing. Guys, you'll see Paul on screen there, but I'm just going to give everybody a couple of minutes to log in. We're going to give it just to 11:02 for everybody to log in to make sure we're all on board before we start. And if I could just ask you, just as per normal in the little chat box or the questions panel, whichever suits you best, just to let me know you can hear and see everybody okay. And while you're doing that, I'll just share some of the people that we have today, which is great to see. So I know we've Debbie there from AXA, you're very welcome. We've Elaine, we've Ross, we've Sean from Marriott Vacation. I think Alison is on board. Hi, Alison. We've Daniela from VoxPro, Katrina from New Ireland, all the ladies. Oh, we've Ross and we've Sean as well. So it's great to see so many coming on board. And I know, once again, we're expecting people from a range of companies who are members of the CCMA and extended friends. And just to remind you, while we're waiting to kick off, please do share the link and the information on all of these webinars to friends who might hopefully benefit from taking part if they're working remotely, as all of us seem to be at the moment. And also just to let you know that recordings of all of these webinars, so this is number 4, and recordings are available on our events page. You just need to scroll down past upcoming events and you'll see past events, and the recording and the presentation is available there for you to download, and it's open to everybody. So we're getting really good feedback and we really appreciate that feedback. And as with all of the webinars, we want to make this as interactive as possible. So any questions that you have as Paul goes through his presentation, please send them through and I'll keep an eye on them for Paul. And I know we're going to have a little poll shortly. So I'm going to hand over to Paul. So Paul Keneally, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Paul is Head of Global Communications with LiveTiles, based up in Sligo. So nice coastal area. And he's going to tell you a little bit about LiveTiles and share his expertise in terms of managing in these disruptive times. So I'll hand over to you, Paul, and thanks so much again for your time this morning.
Thanks very much, Dorothy, and good morning, everyone. So yeah, delighted to be part of this webinar community chat series. Great idea. This 30 minutes we have today, so I'll do my best to get through everything in time, but just please know ahead of time if there's any questions you have afterwards, reach out. I'll be very happy to go into further detail. So my own background is very much in communications and community engagement. To make a longish story short, started off in journalism, documentary filmmaking, ended up with the International Red Cross, ended up leading their communications globally, and then moved on to the UN, where I did the same thing with the UN agency ITU, very much around digital inclusion. So why am I here today? Because the experience of running communications programs and including communities during times of disruption is something I've been very much involved in over the last 20 years, and particularly around the sort of paradigm of people and tech and bringing those together to get really powerful outcomes. I want to just focus on just LiveTiles for the moment, because many of you may not know LiveTiles. I'm operating from Sligo, where we have the team here. We're running the European operations from Sligo, but we're a global company. There's a number of our locations there on screen. Our origin is in Australia, headquartered in New York, and we're the market leaders in digital workplace technologies today. So very much focused on driving collaboration and communication in the workplace, and as you can imagine, quite a busy and interesting time for us as well. So the agenda today, just a little bit of the context of the emergency that we find ourselves in, and then that key issue about leaving no employee behind, which I think is very, very close to all of our hearts today, and something we really need to be very cognizant of on a daily, if not an hourly basis. And then this new normal that we find ourselves in, you know, working from home, a dispersed workforce, and dispersed doesn't necessarily mean disconnected, right? That's a really important objective that we want to get out of this talk, is to really show how possible it is to engage and include all the members of your team, no matter where they're located or what device they're on. Then I'll just run through a sort of a checklist, not an exhaustive one by any means at the end, and also offer some free resources and tools that might help you. So yeah, we find ourselves in this global state of emergency. You know, I'm sure, like many of you, we've used the word unprecedented on many times in our lives. This might be the only time many of us have used it when it actually is unprecedented. It's an incredible global shutdown, but there is that challenge to keep business moving, to keep health systems moving, to keep education moving. And, you know, there's a huge impetus and opportunity as well for companies to come together and help each other to bring employees into that productive space using technology and using our experience to make that happen. So you can see already, this is the screenshot from today, already over 750 million cases worldwide and rising. So the end of this particular health crisis, you know, it could be 3-6 months time. We just don't know. So we really got to adapt to the new situation. So crisis, as I mentioned in the introduction, is something I'm not a stranger to. I just want to talk about one in particular, that was the Haiti earthquake in 2010. Many of you will remember that earthquake. It totally destroyed, well, the country, but certainly the capital city, Port-au-Prince. I arrived there heading up the Red Cross operation on day 2, and we found the city, which looked more or less like this, completely destroyed, including our offices, our warehouses, the homes of our staff, everything. So we had to adapt very, very quickly if we were going to have an impact. And one of the key lessons that came out of that was that finding a way to connect with the community was the key to our success, and that method to connect with them was through mobile telecommunications. So in this sense, for us, Haiti was unprecedented in the sense that we were able to use this massive resource of cell phone devices, which 80% of the population had, in order to connect with the community and bring them in as partners into the humanitarian operation. And why is that relevant for where we are today? Well, these are some of the learnings from Haiti and from other subsequent disasters and conflicts that I've been involved in, including Iraq and Myanmar and Bangladesh and Nigeria most recently, where this sort of this connection between tech and people and communities helped us really to scale up and have a massive impact in terms of what we needed to do. So here are some of the learnings that I've just itemized. First of all, information is life-saving. We learned this, you know, the hard way, I guess, in the humanitarian community, and today would be considered as critical and as important as shelter, food, medicine. It really is, it's a right. So in this situation that we're in today, we need to ensure that the information that we're sharing, it's clear, it's consistent, it's empathetic, and that it gives feedback. In other words, we show that we're listening to the community being our employees, for instance, the whole workforce that we need to connect with. So that information, that regular, consistent, clear information is extremely important, and obviously the channels that you're using, but we'll come to that in a moment. Not to underestimate the power of people. You know, in the Haiti example, it was through connecting with the communities that were affected by the crisis that we really got the guidance in terms of the priorities we needed to address and where the resources and locally were that we could really leverage, given, you know, the critical state of the infrastructure. And it's essentially the same in the situation we're in today. You need to continuously consult and engage and connect with your employees and empower those that community of employees so that they have a voice in this new workforce. Don't assume for a moment that people will find it easy to adjust to this new reality. You don't want a situation where people are sort of isolated in their bedrooms just doing tasks. You need to empower people and let them know they have a voice, let them know they're being listened to. And as I said, don't underestimate the power of this collective to really guide you during these disruptive times. And that's something I'll touch on in a moment also. The tech for good sort of principle is something, you know, I've worked a lot in terms of, you know, how we've worked in the past. Is an extraordinarily important one, because tech is there in not to be blindly evangelical about it, but you will find ways to be more efficient, to streamline how you're working, to find a way that sort of dispels the noise and really helps you focus on what's most important. And part of that is the human element, for sure, that connection, that social creativity and cohesion that we can still achieve through a distributed workforce as we have today. Tech will also help you understand user behavior. And here I'm not talking about, looking for bad behaviors. I'm looking for how to understand where people are gathering online. What are the tools they're gravitating towards that they like? Where's the stickiness? And that will guide you then in your decision making in terms of how to really use channels and use tools and use platforms that your community of employees are very comfortable with and find easy to use and have that sort of intuitive relationship. Adoption is critical. There's never been a situation where you throw a technology solution, be it Slack or Teams or WhatsApp or whatever it might be, and voila, suddenly you have the results. No, you have to absolutely include the people in that and understand that adoption of this technology, of any new technology, is really often the hardest part. And there you'll find, the way to successful adoption can be paved through monitoring user behavior in the sense of what's working and what isn't. And that's a constant and regular thing. And that you can get from good tech platforms and good data analytics. Fourthly, any corporate communications person will tell you that every crisis is an opportunity. And while that might sound a little bit cynical, it's very, very true. And it's very important because it is an opportunity to innovate. It's an opportunity to try things. It's an opportunity to drive change. And it's an opportunity to future-proof your organization against future crises. For instance, the pandemic we're in now, the way we're working now, we really need to learn from this current situation to prepare us for similar shocks in the future. And that's something I think a lot of companies are aware of, but we need to be agile. We need to be able to make mistakes and try new things, be it tech or be it new ways of working, that really drive that change and help future-proof organizations with new innovations. And finally, data. Data is, that's the electricity that really drives all of this sort of tech-enabled collaboration and cooperation and connectivity. But that data needs to be actionable. You need to get to a place where you're making decisions based on data. And as I mentioned at the beginning around information, really creating those feedback loops, sharing the data that you're getting so that your community of employees, your workforce, your colleagues are assured, and reassured that decisions are being taken on real insights and trends, and that this is being shared with everybody. I mean, the dashboards and the different analytics that are available on today's market are so easy to use and so real time that you really can take real time decisions on things like, how your intranet is working, how the most successful channels are functioning, where there's less activity, what news is not getting through. All of this really critical, important information is possible, and now is the time to really, start testing it with the workforce distributed as it is. So onto the second part about, ensuring no employee is left behind, which I think is, as I mentioned in the beginning, is really something of the key challenge for all of us. I know in a former community chat that CCMA had, that employee engagement was the #1 challenge that many of you identified. So just a couple of things to think about an employee engagement. People data, knowing who's in the crew is absolutely critical. You cannot drive collaboration or successful communication or successful workplace inclusion if you don't have the data, that simple data about who's where and what their skills are, and how to connect with them yourself, but also how to ensure that they can have a more organic collaboration amongst each other. So these employee directories are a critical part of the foundations of effective employee engagement in times of disruption. You need to have a secure communication and collaboration platform. For many of you, that's the intranet. I saw on the Sunday Business Post this last weekend, Enterprise Ireland had a big feature on all of this type of platforms that are using, and the intranet featured very, very highly for most leaders in terms of that key platform to bring people together. That intranet could be something like you have already some form of SharePoint or SharePoint Modern, or you could be testing out or rolling out, or maybe you're already expert on Microsoft Teams, or it could be something completely different. But having a secure communication platform is absolutely essential. It's like the town square, where people will come and gather. They'll know, what cafe to drop into, what bookshop to drop into. It's no different in the digital environment. Think of it like that. It's where you go to make your calls, to check in for events, to get a small group of people together to have a planning session, to get the latest news on COVID-19, the latest health insurance policies, whatever it might be that you need right now, getting the right information to the right people at the right time. That's brings in that degree of certainty that will help to drive employee engagement. We're all now, as you can see. Yes, Dorothy.
Did you want to do your poll? I'm just conscious, I know we had talked about doing the poll, so did you want to do that now, or do you want to wait another couple of minutes?
I'm sure, yeah, let's do the poll now. Yeah, I had a quick poll, which would be great if people could quickly check it. We'll give you 30-40 seconds to do that. Maybe Cormac can just put it up on the screen there.
Yeah, sure, Paul. Just about to launch it now. So, okay, so if we give everyone 30 seconds, I think that'll be good.
This is just to get a sense of where everybody is in terms of the challenges that you have, particularly in relation to employee engagement. And as I mentioned at the beginning, be very happy to connect with you post webinar if there's any particular aspect you'd like to dive deeper into. In 30 minutes, this is very much sort of a flavor fest.
So just another 5 seconds and we'll close down the poll. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Cormac and Dorothy, and thanks everybody. So yeah, so the new normal that we're all in now, working from home. As you can see, I'm upstairs in the box room in Sligo. My wife is in the office downstairs working from home, and my 3 kids are in their rooms doing their schoolwork and connecting. One of them's on a live stream with their teacher. It's becoming normal, and definitely there's things that will come out of this that people will like and people will learn from, and people will maybe want it to become part of their mainstream working experience. So again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the opportunity to innovate and to future-proof and to learn from this. It's extremely important. Always be thinking like that. But these screenshots you see here are from our own employee app. We have an internal app in LiveTiles where we share news and people can easily communicate and connect with each other. And a lot of this has just been started by different employees, photographs of their workstations, which evolved into photographs of their coffee machines and different things like this. And one thing I like about this, that I like very much about this, is there's a colleague called Kat. I don't know if you can see her there, Kat Stoike. She's over in Denmark, and Kat is one of these colleagues who sort of comments on a lot of the posts that people put up. She shares a lot. She calls people out and sort of gives them a thumbs up. And she's basically the Instagram influencer equivalent in the corporate workplace. She is an online influencer, and I think it's a very good sign that your workplace is functioning well, your digital workplace is functioning well, and that your employees are engaged. When you see this type of grassroots organic activity, that is a very good KPI to show you that people are very comfortable with the platforms that are available to them, that they're connecting easily, that they're sharing, that they're replacing the physical proximity they would have had in the office with an online alternative. And it's really important that people feel part of a team, that they're feel connected for a common purpose. And I think this is one of the better KPIs, not necessarily how much work they got done today, but this type of very human social activity. And people like Kat in our company, who are just natural community moderators, if you like. And I think the management must also participate in this type of employee-driven conversation. It needs to be organic. It needs to be natural. It's not something you authorize or you direct. You enable it, you facilitate it, and that is a really, really strong indicator for us that the workforce is it's really coming together around this shared purpose. So very important thing to keep an eye out for, and to encourage and to try and facilitate if it doesn't exist in your own companies. So coming to the checklist at the end, we have basically distilled it down into 4 specific things. And as I said, it's not exhaustive, and it comes under that heading at the top about clarity and connection and collaboration equals community. I think this time that we're in now, we'll see a resurgence of online communities. They were all the rage, if you remember the good old days of the interweb when it started first. Online communities and web forums, it all seems very innocent now, but they were all the rage, and they were really driving conversation and sharing knowledge, and a huge generosity and community feel to it. I think we will see a big, strong resurgence of community driven by this current situation, where essentially the whole world is working from home. The global economy has come indoors into people's houses, and that's quite an amazing transformation in a couple of weeks. But again, the checklist, which has always got that headline of clear information and consistent information, enable connection in a very intuitive, easy to use manner, and that will drive the collaboration and create that community feeling, that online community of employees, which will itself create that strong engagement metrics for you. So just to recap, knowing who your people are, ensure you have an Active Directory that's up to date and automated if possible. Have a simple to use online and secure platform, that sort of town square where you bring everybody together, where everybody checks in the morning and sees what's going on, but also for the productivity tools that they need to really work with. Communicate clearly and make considered decisions quickly. Don't be afraid to over communicate. I really think it's better to communicate it 2, 3 times than to risk people not receiving it at all, until as well you use the data to see where people are really congregating for the news and the information. And then, as I mentioned, reserve a space in your calendar for long-term planning, for innovation and future proofing. This is a huge opportunity for learning, which it should be taken full advantage of. We have a number of free resources that we wanted to share with you today, and I'll forward them all on to Dorothy after the webinar, and hopefully you'll find some good uses for them. We've just put out an ebook on remote working. Believe it or not, we were working on this before the current health crisis, not realizing how relevant it would be. It's aimed mostly at the head of IT or the IT department, but very useful for any operational or communications professional to convene that conversation with your IT stakeholder in your organization and really try and make this remote working reality work for you. We're offering that employee app that I showed earlier on. We're offering a 6-month extended trial of that to everybody. It's instantly deployable and really easy to use, and fantastic piece of software which we're offering for free. We can offer complimentary remote working collaboration and communication software health check. So essentially a phone call with one of our experts to see what we can do to help, or what you might need to consider if you're, for instance, trying to manage teams for the first time. It can get out of control very quickly. Very happy to help you with that. We've just launched an MS Teams game as well, which is something sort of along the principle of have some fun and get it done. And we have a video series. You'll find it on our YouTube channel, which we're launching a video every single day, very short, under 1 minute, on tips and tricks on how to use Microsoft Teams better. And we have a podcast as well, which the last 3 or 4 episodes have all been focusing on you know, more in-depth discussions on how to cope and thrive in the current situation of remote working. There are other tools and solutions that we have as well, accelerator services for Microsoft Teams, people data automation, intelligent meeting software, HR bots. All of that is available. If anyone's interested, as I mentioned, we can certainly have a conversation with you around that. So with that, I'll press pause for now, hopefully just on time for some Q&A and coming in on time. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Paul. That's great. I opened the forum to questions, so anybody that has a question, pop it in there in the question box. I think I might kick off if I can, Paul. The app you just showed there, like how much, I'm not a techie person, so how difficult is that to set up? Is that something somebody's IT department would have to set up, or could you use it just within your team?
That every employee will set it up. It's downloadable from the App Store, and you register with your professional email address or your Microsoft account coordinates, whatever it might be relevant for your organization, and it automatically brings you into your own digital workplace. So for instance, you know, I have on my app, I have all the news coming from our intranet, etc., and the ability to post as much as I want and share. And it's a really good way to streamline you know, important news and information, but also to facilitate that sort of social connection between people.
Okay, so simply people go in, download it from the App Store, and then all of their team do that, and you just, is it like a webinar link that everybody's on the same connection to be able to link in and see each other's messages and communications?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't have my phone by my side here. I was afraid it might ring during the webinar, yeah. But it's a regular app functionality, but it just needs some setup instructions from our side, not so much on the technical side, but more on the adoption side, to ensure that it does have traction in the workplace.
Okay, great. Cormac, do we want to just bring up the poll results there? Because I know we sort of showed them briefly, but just to show people, it was actually pretty evenly split when I looked at it that time between three of them. I don't know if you can see it there, Paul. It was pretty evenly split between the platform, the ability to push out news, and the most up-to-date, having the most up-to-date and accurate employee directories.
Okay,
right, each of those were coming in at 30%, yeah.
Sorry, Cormac.
No, I'm just saying that each of those three got were 30%, and then after that was a mobile solution that promotes engagement at 14%.
Great, okay. So I can't see any questions coming through. I don't know if anybody's any comments or any other platforms, technologies people might be using. Certainly feel free to share them with us. What I want to do, because I'm conscious of time, so we've 2 minutes to go, is very much thank Paul for the time he's put into this morning's webinar and for sharing all that information. I know your information is there, your contact details are there, Paul. So paul.keneally@livetiles.nyc. I'll be putting this presentation up on our events page. We'll have the recording of the webinar. It normally takes a few hours, so it might be tomorrow before we have it. But please, a virtual applause, can I say, for Paul, and thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it, Paul. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you all very much.
Great job. Fantastic.
My usual housekeeping, just to say our next webinar is Friday at 11 a.m. Yet another expert, and we're so appreciative of people like Paul giving up their time freely for these webinars. And we have John Reardon of Shopify. So for those of you who don't know Shopify, it's a company that has always been exclusively remote working. All of their employees work remotely, and they've been in Ireland a number of years. And I think, I'm waiting for the figure to be confirmed, they've certainly over 100 employees in Ireland. So John is going to do an Ask the Expert panel for us on Friday. So any questions or comments or concerns or challenges that you have, just email them to me and we'll give them to John, and we'll try and make it as interactive as possible on Friday. But just as it hits 11:30 here, thanks again. Thanks to everybody. Hope you're all keeping safe and well. And hopefully we'll get in touch and chat to you all again on Friday. And thank you to Paul, and thank you to Cormac as always. Thanks. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.